The second major storm to impact the eastern half of the United States is underway, and we're getting ready for some heavy rain overnight, some strong gusty winds, and some coastal flooding. There was severe weather across the south and into the southeast. Fortunately, so far today, that has not been as bad as it was from the Tuesday storm. Major winter storm underway around the Great Lakes, all part of this one system that's moving through there now. A new winter storm continues out in the west. Bitter cold moving into the plains, and we are Joe Rayo and Joe Cioffi, and this is the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast on this Friday night, 2 Friday nights in a row, brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system, and you too can join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the descriptor to this video. Tempest is an affiliate of the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Use the coupon code I want a weather station, and if you do, Joe Rayo will tell you what's coming to you.
What's coming to you? What's coming to you will be a 10% discount. So take full advantage of that, because in this day and age, anytime you get a discount of more than 5%, it's something big. And you get 10% here, except maybe during the holiday season. Then everybody's like marking everything down 35. But the holiday season is behind us now. And the only ones who are still giving you a decent discount is Tempest. So go out and get it now.
And on that note,
yes.
Good evening, everybody on the chat board. Welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast on this Friday night. And for those of you who are not on the chat board but watching in the background, we welcome you too. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn your notifications on so you don't miss us. Sunday through Thursday, 7:35 p.m. Normally we're off on Fridays and Saturdays, but because there's a storm around, we are on the air. So we do this extra podcast, and we always let you know ahead of time. So there's no show tomorrow, and then we'll be back Sunday night at 7:35. And just want to say hello to Eileen Barry on the chat board, Joe. She's based in France, but watch the show when she can't sleep. Okay. Well, you know what? We may help you in that cause. just stay around long enough. Thank you for watching us. See, Joe, they're from everywhere.
Did you ever think that when we got to this point in our lives, goes back now like, 30, 40 years, did you ever think that we'd be doing a show where it was being watched literally worldwide? I mean, based primarily in the Northeast, but there you are down in Georgia. Here I am north of New York City. And we got viewers in Canada. We have viewers in England.
We have a viewer in the north on the North Slope of Alaska.
The North Slope of Alaska. It's amazing.
We've had one gentleman from Australia that watches from time to time. Yeah, it is pretty amazing, and you never visualize these things when you're young. You just don't know where the world was going. Now we've gotten there, and some of us want to go back, but no matter. We can only go forward. David Fuller hits the tip jar tonight. Thank you for hitting Super Chat. Joe's rum, or has it the hour is showing snow squalls on Sunday? That'd be nice. Also, any chance for thunderstorms tonight? On the snow squall thing, Joe, I actually was thinking yesterday when I was looking at some of the guidance with the upper trough that's going to move through on Sunday, that there might be some snow showers, and some places might get a snow squall. I don't think that's impossible.
I would agree with you. I wasn't quite certain about whether or not it would be just full snow, or whether or not there might be some raindrops mixing. I mentioned showers of rain or wet snow, showers of rain or snow. I didn't say wet snow. And as far as this question about thunderstorms, it appears to me, Joe, and we mentioned this last night on WPC, and I'm sure you'll show the precipitation forecast coming up. But WPC last night seemed to be saying that there could be as much as 1.5 inches of rain, mostly over Rhode Island and Connecticut, or in other words, areas just to the north and east of New York City. And I noticed on SPC, the Storm Prediction Center today, that they actually had, from about New York and Long Island and points east, a 40% chance of thunderstorm activity beginning after midnight tonight. So
The 3 kilometer NAM is pretty bullish on thunderstorms tonight. I actually had a squall line again.
well, we'll take a look and see if that does transpire. I think that whatever we do see tonight is probably going to be bundled into the 3-hour interval between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. And that might actually lead to another case of the system overperforming. I know that up until yesterday, a lot of the models were saying that we'd be seeing, maybe an inch, maybe an inch and a half or something like that. But who knows? Somebody out there may pick up even more than that during the overnight hours, especially if convection gets gets mixed in the picture too.
Eileen Barry from France. Thank you for hitting the super chat tip jar. Most appreciated. It's in euros too. Get a good exchange rate now, which is really nice. Thank you very much for hitting super chat. Really do appreciate you hitting the tip jar. All right, so Rich Rothmansky recommends that you look at the FGen on the 3 kilometer NAM on the 700 and 850. So we could certainly do that. First things first, I just want to highlight a couple of things that are going on right now. And one is that if you want heavy snow, this is actually also from SPC. And then Joe's going to take us around on the radars in a second. But this is from SPC because they also will send out from time to time heavy snow discussions and areas of heavy snow. And right now, it's covering, except for southern Michigan, it's covering. They got a purple circle drawn around central and northern Michigan on the lower peninsula, along with northeastern Wisconsin up to about Green Bay, and not quite as far south as Milwaukee, but they've highlighted this area as the best potential for 2-inch-an-hour snows between, now and 11 p.m. So you can see they've got the radar overlaid on it too in some of the darker greens, so we could certainly check that out in a moment when Joe's got the radars. We'll swing over to the upper Midwest. Scott's Adventures, thank you for hitting super chat. Most appreciated. And you're also new to the channel, which is wonderful. And he says thank you for the great weather coverage. So let's cover it, Joe. Time to take us around on the radars and see what's going on, and then maybe you could do a little FGen.
Okay, let me get the shared screen up on the monitor here, and I'm going to do that now. Boom. Let me know, Joe, if you can see the radar. I'm starting off with New York City, Upton, New York radar.
There you go.
And if you can see it, and I hope everybody can, you can see that for the most part, it's dry as we progress into the period, but during the last few frames of the loop, you could see precipitation edging in from eastern Pennsylvania and western New Jersey. It is a 3-hour loop, so I would assume that by the time we get to, let's say it's 7:45 right now, maybe by about 9:30 or 10 o'clock, much of the immediate tri-state area will be seeing their first raindrops, but the heavy-duty activity is still a bit off to the west. In fact, let's first go down to Philadelphia and see what the situation looks like down there. And you can see it's basically the same story. Everything is moving through eastern Pennsylvania and Maryland on into Delaware. And you can see those shades of green indicating possibly light to moderate rain activity. And again, that's moving on a track fairly quickly and will be, again, moving across the tri-state New York area later on this evening. I would think that up until about midnight tonight, if you're in New York or northern New Jersey or western sections of Long Island or the Hudson Valley, you should get by midnight about 1/4 inch of rainfall. But that's only the beginning because, as I said, after midnight, and especially so from about 1 to maybe 4 a.m., we're going to be looking at some much heavier rain activity. In fact, As I mentioned also, after midnight, there may even be a thunderstorm rumbling about. Nothing severe, but something to add to the precip that's expected. I'm going north now up to the Albany area, and you could see even from that area, it's dry now, but things are moving progressively in from the west, already moving toward the last few frames of the loop into Binghamton. And that progression will, as I just noted, bring the rain into the Albany area about the same time probably as New York, say around 9:30 or 10 o'clock tonight. Now, let's go westward. Joe wanted to see what's going on in the snow area, and we'll go first to Chicago, which is experiencing, as you can see right now, fairly significant snow, although it looks like that snow is now lifting away to the north of the Windy City. So they may have already received whatever they're going to get out of it.
They had rain for much of this afternoon, which was not a real surprise. They'll probably pick up most of their snow overnight, but I just wonder whether they lost some of that in terms of accumulation. But they still have a winter storm warning up, though.
Okay, but the colder air tonight should cause the precipitation to go from rain over to snow. Although, as you can see, the steadiest precipitation right now, the back edge has now lifted to the north of the Chicago area. Let's go north of Chicago then. Let's go up to Green Bay, where they are in the midst of some moderate precipitation. And there, too, it looks like the precip is beginning to shrink somewhat and extends back over into the lower peninsula of Michigan. And again, I'm sure they have winter storm warnings there as well.
Well,
right,
that
Joe?
part. Well, I'm sorry. You're up. Where are? I was doing two things at once here, so let me just see where you are. Hang on a second. Well, yeah, they actually have blizzard warnings up for those areas up north of Milwaukee, in that area.
See, the sad part about this is that I don't have the colors to indicate, snow versus rain. These are just taken straight from the National Weather Service offices. This is Green Bay, Wisconsin, Ashwaubenon. I hope I pronounced that.
Well, my friend Mark, who lives in Appleton, is in that was in that darker green, so he would know how to pronounce that.
I guess you have to be a native, otherwise it's a little difficult.
Yes.
Let's go over to well, how about Detroit? Here's Detroit.
How about Detroit?
And the Motor City is getting hammered right now with a moderate amount of precipitation.
Yeah, I'm checking to see what that precipitation is. Hang on. Detroit is, of course, the Weather Service website tonight is all afternoon and evening. It's 35 there, Joe, with thunder. They've got thunder snow in Detroit right now. They have a thunderstorm with light snow. It's 35. So I'm going to guess that they may have been raining before this and have just changed over. 3/4 of a mile visibility, so almost moderate.
If they have thunder snow there, they should send Jim Cantori out so he can jump up and down and scream his head off like he did with that one thunder snow a few years ago that that made national news.
Well,
this
is certainly the area that SPC highlighted.
Let's go to Pittsburgh. This is Pittsburgh or Coriopolis.
Back to the rain.
And they have rain there. As you can see, that is progressing rapidly to the east. This is the precipitation that eventually is going to move through the tri-state area. Now, we're coming up on 8 o'clock, and the Alan Casper rule is anything that's in Pittsburgh takes about 8 hours to get to New York. So you would think, now that the back edge of this is moving through the Pittsburgh area, that the last of the showers probably will be moving through the New York area, probably sometime around 4 in the morning. And again, that falls pretty much in line with what I just said. the heaviest precipitation will be between 1 and 4, and then there should be a very rapid cutoff to the precipitation. You might wake if you wake up at like 8 o'clock in the morning tomorrow in the New York area. There's a chance you may still have a shower around, but more likely all of that will have shifted away to the east of you, and that you may actually begin to see some semblance of clearing taking place even that early in the day. Tomorrow afternoon in New York should turn out to be no worse than partly, maybe even mostly sunny. The difference is that when you wake up tomorrow morning in New York, the temperatures are going to be abnormally mild again, like they were a couple of mornings ago. They'll be in the 50s to near 60. However, by the time we get to tomorrow late in the afternoon, those temperatures will have taken a dive into probably the mid and low 40s. So if you're going to be doing anything tomorrow out of doors, do it in the morning when it's still balmy in the 50s, because by later in the day, a very definitive drop in the temperature, a distinct drop down into the 40s, low 40s, maybe even near 40 by sundown. So much colder air on the way after this brief warming trend overnight tonight. Temperatures, Joe, overnight, right now it's probably somewhere in the lower 40s in many areas. It could very well rise to or even above 50 by daybreak tomorrow morning, and then into the low and mid 50s early tomorrow before things start tumbling temperature-wise later in the day. But anyway, that's Pittsburgh. Let's show one more radar. Let's go over to central Pennsylvania. Let's go to State College, PA, and you can see, again, there's that area, the brighter shades of orange, indicating moderate to maybe even heavy rain activity. And again, that's racing along from west to the east, and that'll be coming into play in the tri-state metropolitan area, as I said, probably in the after midnight hours tonight.
Sal Patchy hits the tip jar, Joe, and generously so. Thank you, Sal. He wants to know how the Sicilian model is coming. Well, I don't know about the Sicilian model. I do know about Sicilian pizza, though. And thanks, Joe and Joe. I watch you every night at 7:35, except Friday and Saturday, unless there's a storm around. I did not tell him to say that, okay?
Okay.
He did that shameless self-promotion on his own, and I'm proud of him. Thank you, Sal.
Thank you.
And another new person and also a tip jar hitter is Justin Fiorenza. Fiorenza. Thank you, sir, and welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Thank you for hitting the super chat tip jar. Okay, so do you want to F-Gen? Very exciting.
All right, I will do that. Let me just first update my YouTube here. For whatever reason, in the beginning, my YouTube does not indicate or change the number of likes on the screen. So right now, let me just say, ringing the bell. We already have 113 likes.
Thank you for those of you who have hit the like button. And if you like the Joe and Joe Weather Show, do hit the like button. We love it when we go over 100. And lately we've been going over 200, even the occasional 300. So hit the like button if you like us.
Pretty amazing, isn't it, the way things have been going for us likewise. Anyway, let me share the screen again. This time we will go with the F-Gen model, the F-Gen indicating at 700 millibars, the area of greatest forcing and atmospheric energy. And this, what you're seeing right now on the screen, is as of 7 o'clock this evening. That's about 53 minutes or so ago. And you see that the F-Gen that we refer to are the contours, the purple contours, and the closer they are together indicates the more significant the energy. Now, this is being taken off of the 18Z GFS, the intermediate run, and you just saw on radar where the heaviest rains were occurring, right in this area here in west central Pennsylvania, lining up pretty well with the maximum F-Gen. So that's as of 7 o'clock this evening. Now let's jump ahead to 1 o'clock in the morning, if I can jump. Apparently it's not jumping. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just hit the button here. And boom, there you go. Take a look at that. That is as of 1 a.m. Interesting that what you're seeing here is kind of like a hole, an FGen hole, because we have one nodule or area here of FGen that's moving into western Massachusetts, and then it kind of curves around to another band that's just moving across the immediate New York City metropolitan area. There's FGen here over the eastern section of the Hudson Valley and western Connecticut, but it's nowhere near the force or strength that is occurring in Massachusetts to the north and east, or to the south and west over New York and Long Island. But you can see that the energy, the main bulk of the energy, is now or is expected to hit sometime after midnight, around 1 o'clock in the morning.
And that's going to coincide with the strongest winds too, because that should happen between midnight and 7 a.m.
Right. Take a look here. Now, this is at 700 millibars. This is many thousands of feet above our heads. So I would not expect that you're going to see southerly winds at ground level at 60 to 70 or 80 knots, because that's, way, way up. But you could see that the winds are turned more out of a southerly direction here. And then as we get to 7 o'clock in the morning, it's already daylight, or not quite daylight. The sun is just getting ready to come up now. But look, all of that atmospheric energy has fired away to the north and to the east very rapidly. This, again, another very rapidly moving system like what we had on Tuesday night. And that pretty well tells you that whatever activity we see will be in that 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. time frame, because after that, everything kind of shuts down rapidly. So it's not going to, we're not going to see the heavy precipitation last very long, but in the time frame that it's here, it's certainly going to be coming down hot and heavy, so to speak. And so that's pretty much what we'll be expecting here overnight tonight into tomorrow morning. I just want to move the FGen over into Sunday, and you could see here Sunday, Joe was talking about snow squall or possible snow squall activity. There is FGen. This is the shot of colder air that will be working its way through, and it is indeed inducing possibly some instability and possibly some snow shower activity, which may translate even into a couple of isolated squalls. That would be for Sunday afternoon. This is for Sunday 1 p.m. So if you're out and about Sunday in the afternoon, don't be surprised if you have a snow shower or maybe even a brief squall move through, and then we'll really be into the really cold air. You can take a look here. You can see these are isotherms are again for the 700 millibar level, but you can tell that it is cold air. Look at this, minus 21 up here, and that minus 21 drops into upstate New York by 18Z on Monday. That's Celsius, and again, that's way up, like 8,000 or 9,000 feet. But it does show you that the push of much colder air is going to be headed our way, and it will be heralded perhaps by some snow shower activity again on Sunday afternoon across portions of the tri-state New York area.
Robert Lomnicki, thank you for hitting the tip jar tonight. And he says, great job. Any thoughts on the Tuesday snowstorm? Well, let's take out the word snowstorm from there, because I don't think it was ever going to be a snowstorm. But we'll get to it momentarily. And JR Boy, number 398, new to the chat board. Thank you for hitting the tip jar tonight, JR Boy. And Bogey's Bees. Bogey's Bees. Hi, Bogey. Hits the super chat tip jar. Thank you so much. And those of you who have all hit the tip jar tonight, thank you so much for your generosity. All right, I'm going to go to the 3 kilometer NAM and to match up with Joe's FGen. And in fact, I think what I'll do is here's the wider view, and then I'll go to the tighter view here. So you can see what's going on up in the upper Midwest with the dark blue heavy snow that is indicated. The low at 8 o'clock is sitting in southern Michigan, southern Lake Michigan, right in the lake, and heavy snow falling across much of the lower peninsula of Michigan and also in that area in and around Green Bay and just south of Green Bay down to Appleton. and you see lighter snows as you go into western Wisconsin and North Dakota, but very, very tight isobars, and as a result, we've got blizzard conditions there. Ahead of it, you begin to see that this, what we were saying, that the NAM 3 kilometer really goes nuts with developing a squall line here. So this is at one. This is at midnight. So showery rains will be coming in from the southwest to northeast. It also has a trailing squall line down through central Virginia, central North and South Carolina. The severe weather today, thankfully, across the south and southeast, was far less than what happened on Tuesday, and that's really good news because that particular round of severe weather with the prior storm was destructive in a big way and caused fatalities in some states, including here in Atlanta, for example, near Atlanta, actually in Clayton, Georgia, uh, with a tree fell on a guy driving his car on a roadway. It just fell right on top of the vehicle and absolutely crushed it. I mean, it was just awful. But
A lot of people don't really, get the idea of a tree and how heavy a tree is. Even a small tree can be quite heavy. I mean, you try to move. Let's say even a limb falls on your front lawn. Oh, look, there's a tree limb fell. I'll go get it. I'll drag it off. And you go and bend down and try to pick that thing up, and all of a sudden you realize that, hey, this isn't going to be very easy. So and even a small tree and a large tree, forget about it.
oh
I mean,
yeah,
it's they can, as you just mentioned, Joe, that poor gentleman in his car. It falls on you, that's it. The game is over. And
yeah, and it was, unfortunately.
yeah.
But here it is on the wider view, and you can see a lot of convective heavy rains in northeastern Pennsylvania, northern New Jersey, Long Island, the Hudson Valley in particular, and then into Connecticut, Massachusetts, southern Vermont, and New Hampshire, and then eventually up into Maine. There's not a whole lot of snow out of this, although it looks like northern New Hampshire and northern Maine will get some. And then, of course, now we're into tomorrow, and you'll notice that the gradient is very, very tight, so we're going to probably be windy tomorrow, and the wind might ease a little bit on Sunday, but we've got this upper trough that's coming through, and you see the streaks there. That is the 3 kilometer NAM picking up on those snow squalls. And I'll go a little tighter on the northeast U.S. view.
Let me point out also, when we mentioned this on the show a couple of nights ago, that with the last squall line that we had Tuesday night, the one model that showed it better than any of the others was the HRRR.
All right, well let's bring that up. But I'll bring it up.
Okay.
Here's the NAM 3 kilometer, which is really does have a look at that. This is at 6 a.m. Joe. 6 a.m. It's got the squall line going through New York City and your house, and points northward right along the Connecticut New York state line and the Massachusetts New York state line, and then it just sort of moves along and fades a bit. But the 3 kilometer NAM has it say at 5 a.m. or between 5 and 6 a.m. when that line goes through, it's going to might be just as like it was the other night. That's when you'll get your strongest wind gusts. Let's look at the 3 kilometer. I'm sorry. Let's look at the HRRR and see what that does. The 0Z is just coming out, so we have the 23Z. We'll take a look. Let me roll it back. And the HRRR, which usually is pretty good with convective stuff, it's not showing a squall line on the HRRR. It's showing patches of what were probably going to be moderate to heavy rain, and maybe there's a little convection in there, but it's not like what the 3 kilometer has.
Right. And in fact, it shows that you said that squall line be moving across my house at about 6 o'clock in the morning. Well, at 6 o'clock in the morning on the HRRR, it's all over at my house.
Yeah, this is 6 a.m. So yeah,
it's a big arm of heavy duty precip from about Manchester, New Hampshire, stretching out over the Atlantic Ocean. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see who wins this contest, the HRRR or the 3 kilometer NAM, both with very tight grids, but there's a rather significant difference. And we're not talking about looking ahead, 12 or 18 or 20 hours from now. We're taking a look at what's going to happen excuse me, only about 6 or 8 hours from now.
Well, I'm going to go back to the 18Z HRRR because that'll take us into Sunday afternoon, so we can at least see uh, some of the squalls. And you start to see a little lake effect that gets going during the day tomorrow in western New York and northwestern Pennsylvania, and you see the streaks on the HRRR. There's your squall. Look at that. That's now, the HRRR, Joe, has this. It does it all the time. It will show something like this, and so you get bullish on the idea that this is going to happen, and it'll hold this until we get to Sunday morning, and then there'll be one. Then suddenly one run will appear, and it's gone, and it was never there. So it's like just a little warning to everybody. I know the snow has been minimal in the coastal areas. Of course, we can't say that now for inland spots because of what happened last week. But don't hold your breath on this. This is a pretty look
This
at
is
that.
this is not even afternoon. This is like from 9 to 11 in the morning.
Right, with the arrival of the cold air.
Right.
The upper trough. Let me just take a look at this. We can't do well. They have a simulated satellite. Let's see what that looks like. The higher tops over here. These are pretty cold tops at 45 hours. There it goes. You can just see it as it moves along. And those, the darker blues moving through. There's your squall line in the simulated satellite. They don't have a 500 millibar look, and I don't believe the 3 kilometer. I don't think has one either. Let me just check that. No, they do also the simulated satellite, but I know the 12 kilometer NAM does, so we can look at it on the 12 kilometer NAM because this is all being driven by the upper trough and the jet, and you see where the trough is. This is at 10 o'clock in the morning. The trough here is still pretty far back. But apparently it's setting off lines of those snow squall or the snow squall line or lines ahead of it. I don't think the 12 kilometer really showed it too well. No, you see it just has some patchy stuff here. It has some streaks, but it really didn't show very much with regards to that. But the mesoscale, if there is a line if there is snow squall, if there are going to be snow squalls, I would think that the mesoscale models like the NAM 3 kilometer and the HRRR would be the ones you want to look at because those would be the models that would pick them up, I think, better than any of the other ones.
I think so too. Yeah. What can you say? Somebody on the chat board said, you know what? With our luck, we'll probably get more snow out of this the squall line or the snow squall line than the ballyhooed storm that everybody's talking about for Tuesday.
Yeah, don't bet against that idea, folks. That could certainly wind up being the case. All right, I'm setting up I'm going to set up the GFS and then we'll come back to it. In the meantime, we'll do that. And we'll just take a look at what's going on with watches and warnings. Now, maybe you can explain this to me. But, for one thing, I was wondering this morning that the Upton office did not put up any wind advisories anywhere. Even though I said, whenever something like that happens, it causes me to think, am I missing something? And I start digging around. And then
let me add to that, because last night I had I don't want to call it a rant, but I said, how come at Orange County and my home county of Putnam County and the counties just to my north don't have a flood watch posted like everybody else does?
No, you still don't.
And we still don't.
Right.
And I don't understand that.
Well, if you look on the watches and warnings map, there's a hole. Okay,
right.
So they have wind advisories in Litchfield County in Connecticut, but just to the west in Dutchess County on the New York side. I guess because the taxes are higher, that maybe they can't afford to put the wind advisory up. I don't know. I'm just saying. But I mean that's like a glaring hole that stands out. There's high wind warnings in Litchfield County and Western Massachusetts. Now those are done by Albany. Those are done by the Albany office. but
Right.
there's no wind advisory on the other side. Now, I just thought that was, I don't know, I just found that really weird. But then I go and read their discussion, and they say in their discussions that they say in the discussion that inland areas would see gusts of 40 miles an hour or more, and coastal areas would see gusts of 50 miles an hour or more. Okay, well, you're just basically just told me that you think that the wind is going to reach advisory criteria. So why isn't there an advisory up? It was just I don't know. I'll find out. I'll find out. Um, wind, we've got winter weather advisories up for the interior areas of Maine, also into north central and northern New Hampshire. We've got various high wind warnings, wind advisories from there all the way down into to Georgia and west to Alabama, northern Mississippi. We also have wind advisories in eastern Arkansas, the whole Ohio and Tennessee Valley under a wind advisory. We have winter storm warnings and some counties in blizzard warnings in Michigan and Wisconsin, northwestern Illinois, southeastern Wisconsin. There's a couple of counties there. Much of the state of Iowa, into southwest Minnesota, southeast South Dakota, into northeast Nebraska, all under blizzard warnings and winter storm warnings in other areas that surround that. In the west, I think now for the fourth day in a row, we've got winter storm warnings. Just about the whole state of Oregon is under a winter storm warning. They've got winter weather advisories up even along the coast. Blizzard warnings now confined just to southern Idaho. Winter storm warnings in northwestern Utah, northeastern Nevada, northern California, the Sierra Nevadas. Also, winter storm warnings in a bunch of counties in the western half of Colorado. High wind warnings in some mountains in eastern New Mexico, and on and on. And all of the stuff that you see in the lighter, I don't even know what color you would call that, aquamarine. The areas in uh, Montana, South Dakota. Let me see what the legend says that's supposed to be, because I know the lighter blue, I think, is a wind chill advisory, and well, they've got all these blues here. I know it's not an avalanche warning. I see the wind chill advisory. Um, it's a wind chill warning. These are areas with wind chill warnings. And by the way, I did also set this up in terms of the cold air because we really haven't been talking too much about this. These are the lows that are forecast for tomorrow morning. And I'm going to make this map a little bit bigger so everybody can see the numbers. So here you go. Across Montana, we're talking about places that are going to be between 25 and 35 degrees below zero. The same for Wyoming, except for the southwestern part. North Dakota, minus 20 to minus 25. South Dakota, minus 20 to minus 25. Kansas, Nebraska, the western part of Nebraska, between minus 15 and minus 25. Eastern part of Nebraska between minus 5 and minus 10. You get down into Kansas, the northern part of Kansas, all below zero. Southern part of Kansas, single digits. Into Oklahoma, single digits. 11 for Oklahoma City. And as we go into Sunday morning, that spreads even further south. The Dallas-Fort Worth forecast low of 16. Oklahoma City 4. Amarillo 0. Kansas City minus 9. St. Louis 0. Chicago, now that's a little tricky because that's on the lake, so that's 0, but it's below 0 just inland. Across Iowa, it's 15 below or lower. Same goes for Minnesota, below single digits in Wisconsin. Single digits as far east as western Ohio. For me, it's low 20s for Sunday morning. They've got me in single digits here by the time we get to Wednesday. Now, Monday, the cold air starts to spread out a bit more in the east where you've got teens, low 20s near the coast, single digits down into the West Virginia mountains, Tuesday, and then of course you see still below zero all through this area from the northern Rockies down through the southern plains and then northeastward into the Great Lakes. Chicago's -9 Monday morning. And a lot of areas to the west are like -15, -16, -20s in Iowa. Tuesday, uh, still double digits below zero. And at this point, Dallas is forecast of a low of 10. Houston, a low of 23. You have to go all the way down to Brownsville. Is the only station on this map in South Texas that's going to be above freezing at 33. I mean, we're talking, for this area of Texas, and we know what happened. Was it a couple of years ago when they had that big upper low drop down, and the bitter cold air got into Texas and basically shut their electric grid down. Well,
Right.
the grid's going to get tested with this bitter cold that is coming in Wednesday morning. The cold gets to me, and this is where they have me down to 7, Joe. And you can see all single digits into the western part of Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Western Virginia, right down through the Appalachians into North Georgia, Northern Alabama, Northern Mississippi, all in the single digits. And Thursday morning, it's cold in the Northeast, but it's only teens to near 20. And the below zero readings start to disappear and things begin to moderate a bit across the southern states, but still very cold. I mean, you got low 30s, freezing temperatures all the way going down into central Florida. I'm going to check the day before that because they got a 32 there for Orlando. So, I mean, certainly in northern Florida, it's going to get very cold. Wednesday, not so much for Tuesday. Not at all for Tuesday and not at all for Monday. So I guess you guys are going to have to wait till you get to the middle part of next week to participate in some of this very cold air. This is certainly the coldest air of the winter season, and in fact, in a lot of areas, it's the first cold air of the winter season.
Now, if you want to see, if you want to see a bunch of guys suffer, really, this should be very interesting. Yeah, those of you football fans, you may have seen last Sunday for the final game of the final game of the season for the Jets and the Patriots. They played in Foxborough, Massachusetts, and they had snow, and you couldn't see the hash marks at times. They were slipping and sliding all over the place. This coming Sunday, Joe, there is a wild card playoff game in Buffalo. The Buffalo Bills are going to be playing the Pittsburgh Steelers in Buffalo. And if the forecasts are correct, they're calling for the likelihood of heavy snow showers and squalls in the Buffalo area. They're also talking about snow accumulations in Buffalo at game time of 4, 6, maybe 10 inches. So that field, that game is going to be remarkable to watch, I think. If those conditions do transpire, you're going to see a lot of guys who I'm sure are making a lot more money than any of us, on the chat board, or even you and I, Joe. I mean, those guys are going to be making their money on Sunday in that game, because it looks like the weather, not only just heavy snow, but blowing snow, drifting snow. I mean, it could. I've never seen a football game get canceled because of snow. But I don't see how, if these conditions verify, it's going to be well nigh impossible to do much of anything on that field come Sunday afternoon. So, and I don't know what channel. I don't know if it's on Fox or NBC or CBS or whatever. But whoever's carrying that game, that's going to be a spectacle to watch on Sunday afternoon.
We'll see. We have Amity Bryson on the chat board. She's new, and she says it's snowing in McMinnville, Oregon. And I imagine that must be in southeastern Oregon, because I've pulled up the radar on the screen, and you can see the snow that's from the precipitation that's moved off the coast from the Pacific and moving inland. And I'm thinking, too, even in Northern California, not too far from the coast, it must be snowing, because I'm looking at these echoes, and they sort of look like snow echoes when you see that kind of a milky green as opposed to the darker greens, but that milky green in northern California. So I'm betting that's mostly snow.
And Halase Baloya.
Just call her Zim.
He says, Joe Rayo, how about the Kansas City game? Temps at 0 at the start of the game. That's tomorrow night.
Yeah, right.
Well, and we already talked about that. We were wondering whether or not Taylor Swift was going to show up for that game.
Well, I'm sure right now she's glued to the Joe and Joe weather show to find out what the temperatures are going to be like. You might want to let her know, Joe.
Somebody
You
on
can
my Facebook,
fire off a personal email.
somebody on my Facebook page said she's probably, if it were within her range, she'd probably be able to put a dome on that stadium.
Oh, that is quite true. Just looking at the radar here in the east, there's a northwest southeast band of heavy rain here, running from southwest Pennsylvania. It's not continuous, but there's some breaks. But then that extends southeastward, moving into the Washington D.C. Baltimore area and down into the southern part of the Delmarva Peninsula. That's moving on up to the northeast. All right, I'm going to run through real quick what WPC is doing.
And thank you to everybody on the chat board who says, Joe, the game in Buffalo and Pittsburgh will be on CBS on Sunday. So you want to see something interesting, unless they move. Somebody on the chat board said they were considering trying to move that game to Minnesota, but I think I might be too late now for them to do that. So
this is CBS, the Can't Be Serious Network.
yeah.
I found this from WPC. I found this map. Rather than do 7 days, it's got each day one at a time, which is really cool because now we can, separate the apples from the oranges. And this is day 1, so this takes us through
200.
Thank
200
you.
likes.
Thank you
Yeah.
for those of you who hit the like button. So this takes us through tomorrow evening, and you can see here in the Northeast, it's mostly anywhere from the darker blues or a half an inch, the purples that you see in northern New Jersey, a couple of streaks there in the Hudson Valley in northeastern Pennsylvania, and much of Connecticut and Rhode Island. That's an inch and a half to 2 inches. And then further south, of course, it all tails off because once the front goes through, it's done. We also have around the Great Lakes anywhere from a half an inch of liquid to some 1 inch to inch and a quarter in the northern part of Michigan and the northern part of the lower peninsula and also parts of the upper peninsula. And then in the west coast, we've got heavy precip now, up to several inches of rain coming into coastal California, and of course that's translating inland to snow, where they've got winter storm warnings up in much of the state of, just about the whole state of Oregon under a winter storm warning, and even into parts of northern California and in the Sierra Nevadas. Now I'm going to jump over to, so this is now day 2, and that takes us to Sunday into Monday, and you see how the precip lines up there. I'm not going to go through every individual day, but I'm just going to highlight the days that might matter. So day 3, which is Sunday night to Monday night, this area here from eastern Oklahoma, they've got they've got a tenth to a quarter of an inch. So they're not talking about a lot of precip here from eastern Oklahoma extending into Tennessee. And that is, most of that, if not all of it, is going to be in the form of snow. And you can see the finger that sort of points up into West Virginia. The light green is just a few hundredths. And I'm in the light green, which just means I may get, maybe I'll get a coating or a little bit more. I was hoping from what the models were doing with this southern system that maybe I'd get into some of the heavier precip and pick up an inch or two. Maybe it'll still happen, maybe not. Now this is for Tuesday. So WPC has a quarter of an inch of liquid from Boston to about, I don't know, Danbury, into northeast Pennsylvania, then running south through central Virginia, central North Carolina, South Carolina, down into Georgia. That's the back edge of a quarter of an inch. And you have a half an inch along the Carolinas. So, of course, this area down here from southeast Virginia on southward is probably rain, but the stuff all inland is mostly snow, but it's not a lot. Okay, so just bear that in mind. That's not a whole lot of precip being indicated. Then they have another tenth of an inch on top of that for day 5. This forecast was done Earlier today, this is the last one they did. So these look like they were done between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. And then we've got day 5. So that was day 5. Day 6, not much. Some areas in the Great Lakes. And day 7, starting to see stuff gel up. So this would be for next Friday, Thursday night into next Friday night, um, as sort of their interpretation of the long range. And WPC also in the long range. Now, again, this was done earlier today, done off old guidance. This was done at shortly before noon. The darker greens from Northeast Virginia on up to Maine, that's a 30 to 50%. Not really changed very much from what they were showing last night. And they did add the blue here in Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, southeast New Hampshire, coastal Maine. That is a 50 to 70% chance for at least a few inches. Now, I wonder if they would have done the same forecast if they looked at today's guidance package, because it was somewhat underwhelming. Now, I'm going to take you through a few things here going on in the upper air. And if you were here last night when the GFS was very overamped, I made it a point to point out that that was indeed the case, that it was very overamped and that you were going to see a flatter, more suppressed look. And starting with the 0Z run last night, we started to see that go in that direction. Here's the upper trough that comes through on Sunday. And you've got this cold flow from Canada, and now you've got this next trough. But I want you to notice we often talk about negatively tilted and positively tilted. That's about as positively tilted as you can get. Okay, that trough is east-west, and you're not going to do much with that. You've got northerly winds on one side and westerly winds on the other, and that just doesn't help the cause. And on today's runs, it's almost this is, if you look here, this is Wednesday morning. I'll go back to yesterday. Just go back to yesterday's 18Z run. And I mean, you had a distinct V-shaped, actually it had a cutoff low over Pittsburgh and a pretty strong storm off the New Jersey coast south of Long Island. They got this negatively tilted trough with a closed low sitting northwest of, not too far from Lake Winnipeg, to the east of Lake Winnipeg. But, I've got this almost phased trough with this cutoff low there in Pittsburgh. And I saw that and was like, there's no way that's going to happen. And, sure enough, as we gone through today, if you look at it, I mean, you can't even find that short wave. There's no upper low in Pittsburgh. It's a much weaker, there is a little short wave here, but it barely makes a dent in the flow. There's actually another one back through here, and that might be part of the problem here. You got too many short waves running around in that flow and not one strong one. So that's causing everything to be weaker and more suppressed. And then the question becomes, what happens late in the week going into next weekend? And this is where we have an upper low that's dropping down over Lake Superior. And if you look at the GFS, it's like, okay, well, you got this trough that's moving through, but it's a positively tilted, blah. Really doesn't, really is nothing, it's not much to get excited about. The European, which has gone back to putting 955 lows in southeastern Canada again, does do something with this. And by the way, we do have, at least we've got Tuesday morning on the new 18Z run. I'll come to that in a second, but I want to go back to the 12Z. So here's the European today, which also doesn't have much of a short wave that comes through for Tuesday night into Wednesday, and then it stretches the upper low, which is this storm. When it goes into eastern Canada, it's just going to rotate there. It stretches it back westward, and it sends a deep trough down in the Great Lakes, and it does this. Now, if that were to happen for next weekend, Joe, I think we would have the potential for a problem. Okay, if that were to happen, I just don't know. This would sort of match up with the idea of the Arctic oscillation, running up to the neutral line that we talked about yesterday, and the NAO running up to the neutral line. Usually, when that happens, you're going to get a storm developing somewhere, and a lot of times it's in the east. And certainly, the European keeps wanting to go there, but I just don't have confidence that this is this is anything realistic.
I would agree with you. And again, for next week.
Yeah,
Next,
and obviously a lot of things could change between now and then. I mean, look at the big ridge that the European flies up up the west and into the northwestern part, into northwestern Canada as this trough digs down like an animal.
Well, that's what a lot of people have been complaining about. They're saying, "Oh yeah, well, it's going to get cold, and yeah, we'll have our chances of snow." But what happens? The European is saying that by the latter part of January, it's going to start warming up big time again. And why? Take a look. There's that big ridge that's building up in the west by the 20th of January.
Yep. So anyway, I'm not holding much. We'll see. We'll see what happens as we go through the weekend because I just think that look is right now I would view that as unrealistic. And then we could take a look at the surface here. Now I'm going to go to the 18Z and let's see because this takes us now to Tuesday morning. Not going to help us beyond 90 hours, unfortunately. But here you go. There's your low tonight. And by the way, just as a reminder, if you're looking at this as well, how come it's not showing the blue for snow? Well, these maps are about average precipitation rate. Tropical Tidbits does not have a precip type map,
right.
which it has for the GFS and the other models. So we get to the same place. As we go into Monday night and Tuesday, you see the precip that gets generated down in Arkansas, Tennessee, kind of gets lost in the Appalachians, and then some kind of weak low that comes out of the Northeast Gulf and off the Southeast coast. And it looks like you have some kind of inverted trough there up along the East Coast. But I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, you know what? I don't think this is going to go much differently than what the day run did, which was this, which is it's just weak. It brought some moisture up and some snow. It gave like a couple of inches, but the wave is way to the southeast and goes out. And the GFS was no different late this afternoon. It has backed off quite a bit from what it had yesterday and just a few runs ago. But again, it's just sort of this, weak low that comes out. It does the 12Z run tried to generate some snow, but the 18Z is like, then there's a second low that forms on Wednesday, but that doesn't do much of anything. And then it really doesn't, it's got something now trying to do something here, tries to do something Friday night and Saturday offshore, and then that goes out, brings down, one solid shot of bitter cold air that lasts for probably a day and a half. I found it really hilarious when I looked at this, Joe. The thickness here, the 510 thickness is in Northern Virginia by Saturday afternoon, and by Monday morning, the 540 thickness is in southern New Jersey to northwest Pennsylvania. I mean, that's how quick that cold shot that at the end that comes in after whatever happens at the very end of the week, goes out. So,
right, we immediately bump right back up again to noticeably milder weather.
Yes. By the way, you know what I found out on Pivotal Weather, Joe? I can actually, these are the SREF maps. So these are the plumes, Joe, le plumes in map form. So it makes it easier than having to call each station individually. Now this was the 15Z. They do have the 21Z, and I have the rainfall map up. So let's.
By the way, Joe, William Huber's asking, is DT still coming on Sunday night?
That's the plan.
Okay.
That is the plan. Leon Probitsky, thank you for hitting the tip jar tonight. Thank you for hitting Super Chat. Most appreciated. So the SREF tonight, in terms of rainfall amounts, gives um, pretty much between an inch, around an inch for northeastern Pennsylvania, the northern half of New Jersey. Then you get like an inch and a quarter around New York City, east of Long Island. Connecticut, inch and a half, maybe some areas an inch and three quarters. I'm running through my cursor through it to see some of the numbers. Actually, I put the cursor not too far from where you are in Putnam County, Joe, and it gives 1.52.
Okay.
It gives you an inch and a half.
Okay.
But this is nice to have because it's easier to kind of using that graphic chart that they have um, is a little cumbersome. This makes life a whole lot easier, and they have snow maps for this, so this is even better. We can look at the plumes with the snow map, and we could also look at the 10-meter wind. So why don't we do that? And this is the 21Z SREF, which is the most recent one. Let's see what kind of winds it gives tonight. It doesn't give numbers, only gives fabulous colors.
And the SREF also, as we've been saying, showing the heaviest precipitation tonight, mostly north and east of New York, like, an inch or an inch and a quarter from New York and points north. But to the northeast, Waterbury 1.6 and Bridgeport 1.5, Norwich 1.6. So, and that also is where you have your best shot also of getting convection. So
yeah.
the heaviest amounts are, again, looks like north and east of New York.
Now, these are 10-meter winds. These are sustained winds. They're not gusts, okay? They're not gusts. These are sustained winds. So we're talking 20 to 30 knots up and down the New Jersey coast, and on Long Island, sustained winds of 20 to 25 knots. And then you get to eastern Long Island, it's closer to 30 knots sustained. They do not have a wind gust option here. So, but you got to imagine that the gusts are going to be, certainly much higher than that. And by the way, all these southeast winds coming in with the high tides that lie ahead. Moderate to major coastal flooding is being, they've got coastal flood warnings for much of the south shore of Long Island. I was looking at some of the individual stations, including Jamaica Bay and Queens, where they're forecasting major coastal flooding there. Many of the points that they show from the Weather Service statement along the south shore of Long Island, moderate to major coastal flooding, coastal New Jersey, moderate to some major coastal flooding in some places there, because we just had the new moon yesterday. So tides are at their, running at their cycle peaks today. And then they start to drop as we go through the weekend. So this is not going to be fun for coastal residents come high tide time.
Yes, no question about that. So
I did my rant earlier, which was about the wind advisory. It's going to be my job to find out why.
Yeah, I did check on the technical discussion from Upton, and they say that the flash flood guidance isn't particularly high over the upper part of the Hudson Valley for my area, and also for Ulster and Orange County or whatever. So that's why they did not go with a flash flood just a flat out flood watch. Meanwhile, Rockland and Westchester are in a flood watch until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. So We'll see. We'll see what happens.
All right. Well, so as a reminder, folks, tomorrow we're off. So we will be back on Sunday at 7:35 p.m. and we'll see what happens over the weekend with regards to the next couple of weather systems. Will they or won't they? Got to think that the way things have been going, it's probably going to be a won't they, because they don't seem to want to.
People on the chat board have already begun throwing in the towel again. Louis Origio, shades of last winter. And
well, you know what? The thing is, the pattern's completely different, and but it just it just stinks in a totally different direction. It's just
Right.
it's a totally different pattern. I
That's
mean,
right. Peter Bicker says it's looking a lot like last winter at this point. I mean, maybe he's looking at that from the standpoint of lack of any snow or
right.
paucity of snow, but it's not like last winter because we didn't have these shots of extremely frigid cold air last winter that showed up anywhere in the contiguous United States. At least that
Well,
we
except for two, the one at Christmas and the one in
Christmas
early
time.
February, and both
Right.
of them lasted all of a couple of days,
Exactly.
if that.
Exactly.
And those were basically very minor interruptions in a in what was the primary pattern. And last year, much of the U.S. didn't get a lot of snow because it was all in California. It was all in the West and in California,
It's
especially in
different.
California.
It's different in a weird kind of way from last winter. But I know that unless you guys get your big snowstorm, you're going to say it's the same old story. But again, we're not even halfway through winter yet. Still lots of time, lots of things to happen, and we'll see what transpires. Next week we may be in for a surprise. And if there is a surprise, guess where you're going to find out about it first? Right here on the Joe and Joe Weather
All
Show.
right.
And we want to thank everybody who hit the like button tonight, 230 likes. And thank you to everyone who hit the super chat button, which was David Fuller, Eileen Berry, Scott, and Eileen is in France, for God's sake. Scott's Adventures, Sal Patchy, thank you, Sal. Justin Fiorenza, Bogies
No, 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 no. Fiorenza.
Fiorenza, Justin Fiorenza, Bogies Bees, JR Boy number 398, Robert Lumnicki, and Leon Probitsky. And there you go, Joe.
And I think it's probably okay if we end the show with Paul Lind as Uncle Arthur. And actually, there's someone who leaves comments on the chat board and goes by Uncle Arthur and uses this shot. So this is for you, Uncle Arthur.
That look a
And
lot like, wait a minute, that looks like Alice.